So we learned about head. And typically you want to set up your head content in every page and also in every if branch inside of a page, because you have very specific titles and contents for those different scenarios. Now here in the slug page, for example, we definitely want to set our own title and our own description, but maybe we want to use the same title and description for all the different if cases then. So we want to reuse that and not copy it manually into all those different cases. We could copy it, but that's of course annoying. Now reusing here is simple. We don't need any special Next.js concept. We can use a standard React.js approach. Instead of copy and pasting it, we cut it from down there and we set it up once right at the beginning of this component render function. So here, before I have my first if check, so before we render something the first time, so to say, I create a new constant, page head data, or whatever you want to name it, and that contains my head section. Now, since I rely on num month and num year here, we might want to extract this first. So I'll cut that here and move this in front of this page head data part here. And then we can just include page head data in all our return statements. So for example here, I then wrap this into a fragment because I now want to add an adjacent JSX element. I want to also include my page head data and output the content of this constant dynamically in this returned JSX code. And the content of this constant, of course, is this JSX code. And we can now do this in all our return statements. So also here, and here, and also in the final return statement here. So that would be a standard React way of reusing some logic. And if we do that, if I reload, I get an error that I cannot read property 0 of undefined. And the problem is that I'm accessing my filtered data here, and filtered data might be empty, of course, or it actually will be when the page renders the first time, because I explained that useRouter works such that it runs when the page was first rendered, and it doesn't have the path parameter values at this point. It then runs again and has access to them thereafter, but not at the beginning. And therefore, actually, I want to move that filtered data part after the if loaded events part that was correct. And I want to set up my page head data thereafter, therefore. So below here. But I will remove const here and instead create page head data as a variable here and just assign a different content at the beginning. So here it still holds the head element, but I'll have a different description. So I'll copy the title and my meta content here, but the description here is a list of filtered events, something like this. So now we change the page head data inside of this component function, depending on whether we have data or not. And with that, if we save this and reload, this does load. And now if I inspect the page source here, we see that we do have that title and that we do have that description here. So that's how we can reuse the head data inside of a component if we have different return statements and therefore different pieces of JSX code that might be rendered by that component. But that's not the only way of reusage which we have.